Hare Krishna. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. It's our daily adventures in Srimad Bhagavatam. And today we're continuing with our discussion called Meeting in Kurukshetra. This is part number 50. It's a Bhramara Gita, or the talks between the gopis, Radharani, and the bumblebee, part 3. And we'll be continuing to speak about the connections between his Bhramara Gita and the Sannyasa of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Gora graganya gana gotra goloruharam Goranga gudatama gopyata kopa briksham Gopala gadaratidam yati singha gora Govinda deshi kavaram satatam namami Uttama adama kichuna bachila Jachiya dileka kola Kahe premananda emona Gauranga hridaya dadiya bola Bhaja Gauranga kaha Gauranga Laha Gaurangera namare Jai Jana Gauranga Bhaje Se Hoyamara Pranhare Narayanam Namaskrityam Naramshchaiva Narotamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayad Vedi Ramayaneshchaiva Purane Bharate Tata Adhavante Chamadye Chahari Shaivatra Giyate Mukam Karoti Vachalam Pangum Langayate Girim Yet Kripa Tamaham Bande Shri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Good morning, dear devotees from Sri Jagannath Puri Dham. This is session number 50 in our series we're calling Meeting in Kurukshetra. And we're discussing more about Radharani's meeting with the bumblebee, talks with the bumblebee when Uddhava came with a message to the place known as Uddhava in Braj. Just to review a little bit from our last session, we spoke something from this 47th chapter of the 10th canto, which speaks about this Bhramara Gita. And in our last session, we spoke about the 4th verse of the 47th chapter, in which the gopis, they told Uddhava, Pitro Bhavan Priya Chikirsaya, that Krishna, there's real purpose in sending you, wasn't to speak to us, but Krishna's real purpose was to give pleasure to his parents. And in the purport to the next verse, text number 5, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, in his Sartha Darshini, he continues that the gopis are telling Uddhava that we don't see anybody else worthy of remembrance in Braj, that Krishna, he really doesn't care. If he really cared, he would return. But he's just worried that people are going to criticize him. He's not coming for us because he's not sending Uddhava for us because nobody knows about us. But people may criticize him that he's left his parents, Nanda Maharaj and Mother Yashoda. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur comments that the gopis are saying, Mune Krita Sannyasa Shyapi Dusjaja. That even great munis, Krita Sannyas, who've taken sannyas, Shyapi Dusjaja, they find it very difficult to give up their relationship with their father and mother. So we spoke about how Krishna, to repay his debt to the gopis, he had to show that actually it's not true, that I'm more attached to you than I am to my own mother and my own father. And so Krishna came again as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and taking sannyas, he left his mother to run to Radharani in Jagannath Puri in the form of his taking sannyas. And Lochan Das Thakur calls this in his Caitanya-mangala, he calls this Adbhuta Vairagya. So Jiva Goswami speaks about this in his Gopal Champu in Uttarakhanda chapter 11, which is called Dutta Brahma Kara Bhramara Sambrahma, that mistaking the bee for a messenger. And he writes there, he says, Tatascha Vismitya Sarvas Chasa Vinaya Kramam Tam Arvag Bhavantam Kamalavahari Padita Samvasa Vasita Bahir Antaram Kamalamatra Pranata Patra Madulid Jataya Eva Kamalakara Jagat Pranam Pari Babrur. That the gopis were very, very astonished. Vismitya means they were all just completely astonished by all this. And they gathered together just like bees whose life is the lotus. They gathered all around Uddhava. So just in the same way that the bees, they hover around the lotus flower, which gives them nourishment and life. So similarly, the Braj Gopikas, when they saw Uddhava, they all gathered around him because he was the life-giving water for the lotus of the gopis. And the gopis, after surrounding him, as we spoke in our last session, they remained silent for some time, and then without being able to control themselves, overcome by their pain, they began to speak. And we spoke some of this in our last session also, that they said that to Uddhava, that we understand by your fragrance that you're a Lord, that you're an associate of the Lord of the Yadus. They address him as Yadupati. Janimas tvam kila Yadupate parshadam surabhadhir. We understand that you're associating with him. What can we say? We're very, very miserable. So we know that he's given you an order. Otherwise, you wouldn't have come here. You wouldn't have been able to leave Krishna. And that your real purpose in coming here is Krishna's father and mother. That's the primary purpose. That even great sages, Bandhu Sneha Muni Tatir, they can't give up their affection for their friends. So how is it that he's given up association with his father and mother? And the gopis, they go on telling Uddhava that anyway, enough of this speaking about all these different things, speaking about the relationship of men and women. It's a very difficult thing. Marriage is desired by common people because illicit lovers, they desire the happiness of married life, but finally in the end they give each other up. In other words, like Krishna has just given us up. And speaking all these things, Gopal Champu is a conversation. It's a narration of Madhukanta and Snigdhakanta, two speakers who were previously Nalakuvara and Manigriva, who were cursed to become trees. And because they were there as the trees, they got some great qualification in spiritual life, great qualification. They were witness to Krishna's Leelas. And so later on, for the pleasure of the residents of Vrindavan, they were recounting all these different pastimes. So Madhukanta is speaking all this. And in the midst of his speaking, suddenly Madhukanta, he begins to cry. And he says that Tad evam patamata eva yasam govinda matram bindamanani manasavadeha britti bindani tad eka sandanatani nahi bahir bhadra bhadram vindati sma. He said that from the very beginning, the gopis, that all they knew Their minds, their words, their body, all they knew was Govinda Krishna. They were completely just dedicated to him. They didn't know anything good, anything bad. And then Madhukanta begins to lament. He says, Hanta, Hanta. He's crying out, Ta punas tasya virahena, duyamanataya, vyagribuya, tadvisam asabhyam apyabhasanta. He said that in this separation, the gopis are very, very disturbed by pain. And for the first time, this pain is observed even by outside people. And although Uddhava arrived in Braj with the purpose of pacifying everyone in general, the gopis, they surpassed all normal limits in their intense pain. And Madhukanta says, what more can I say? They revealed Krishna's confidential message carried by Uddhava in their attractive song. So this is the Bhramara Gita. The Gita means a song. They revealed Krishna's confidential message carried by Uddhava in this song. And he says that Tata Kritam Sudustarena Tad Unmada Vistarena Iti. He says, Smriti Mama Hridam Duyate, that my heart is burning. And what more can I say about the Sudustarena Tad Unmada Vistarena Iti, their madness in separation? And then Jiva Goswami describes, Tadeva Monena Murdanam Anamya Punar Aho Aho, that with their heads bowed down, Madhukanta, he spoke again. And he said, Mama Vrichika Bhiya. Vrichika means a scorpion. And he says, Vrichika Bhiya, out of fear of the scorpion, now what have I done? I've tried to run, but all I've done is Palaya Manasyasi Vishamiki. I've entered into the mouth of a very poisonous snake. Pravesha Sadi Samagata. Yatastad Ativistaram. And this very, very intense poison that's there. He said, this has caused me so much problem. This Shiradikaya Dibyam Madabadam Abadam Tad Idam Vilapitam Lapitam Apitaitam. Now I'm bound up with a state of madness of Srimati Radharani. And I'm trying to describe her words of lamentation. In his wonderful book, the Vrindavan Lilamrita, Shilananda Kishore Goswami, who comes in the line of Nityananda Prabhu, he lived a few hundred years ago, he wrote this book in Bengali language. He was the Mahant at the Nityananda, in Braj, Shringaravata, Nityanandavat. He was the Mahant there. He wrote this wonderful book, and in the 20th chapter, he speaks something about this meeting of the gopis with Uddhava. And the gopis, at that time, they told Uddhava, Suno pitam baradari kota tomarga, kinama tomara kena ekunja bita. And they said, hey, they told Uddhava, Suno pitam baradhari, you're dressed in a yellow dhoti, Krishna's dhoti. Kota tomargar, where is your house? Kinama tomar kena e kunja bitar. Why have you come here in this kunj? And what was Uddhava doing? Krishna Krishna nama kaha kishera karane, vivariya kaha deki koriye shravane. They said, Krishna Krishna nama kaha kishera karane. Why are you chanting Krishna's name over and over again? Vivariya kaha deki koriye shravane. You tell us about this thing. Why are you doing this? We spoke in some of our previous sessions about the qualifications of Uddhava to be Krishna's representative and how it was that the gopis recognized him as being Krishna's representative. And here Nandakishore Goswami, he gives us another very important indication of who is Guru. Guru is someone who quotes Shastra. Guru is someone who chants Krishna's name in a very, very simple way. Guru is not someone who just comes and speaks to us about solutions to social problems or psychiatry, psychology. Guru is someone who's representing Krishna and is giving Krishna. He may be a big guru, he may be a small guru. But they recognize Uddhava. They said, why are you chanting Krishna's names again and again? Huh? And they said, we know now this Krishna, he's become Vidyapati. He's a king in Mathura. Now he's got this big position. And probably because of that, he has no time to come here to Braj. You're his order bearer, you're his friend, his companion. And being ordered by your master, now you've come here to pacify his love. He sent you, but don't think it's going to be successful. Now his parents, the gopis, Nandakishore Goswami says the gopis are speaking about Uddhava's parents. His parents are dying for him now. They're crying. And he's just casually staying there in Mathura. He doesn't care for them. Gopajati pitta matai nahi prayojan. Bhuji patai la lokan indara karan. They said that he has no need for someone who's a Gopajati, Pita Mata, nahi prayojan. He has no need for parents who belong to the Gopa class. Probably the real reason he sent you, Bhuji, we understand, Bhuji Patalaya, the reason why he sent you this message was that he was worried about some public scandal, that people were going to criticize him. He said, we know you're a very cunning person. You're the perfect companion of a perfect cunning master. After pacifying his parents, now you've come here to speak with us. But the gopis told him, go away. Atta eva jahatana pitamata stane pasari be krishne tanga tomara vachane. They said, so go away. Go back to his parents. Maybe they'll be able to forget Krishna by your words, but it's not going to work with us. Why does he have this conscience? He's doing all these false things. And this way the ladies of Braj, they began to rebuke Uddhava. And Uddhava was astonished. This didn't happen with Nanda and Yashoda. When I spoke with them, they were very attentive and listening. They wanted to hear about Krishna and what was Krishna's message. But these Brijbasi ladies, they're chastising me. Uddhava didn't know what to say. He was just standing there. And the gopis, they went on. Jari muni hoye chad koraye sansare bandhu sneha anu bandhu nare charibhare. He says that someone Jari Muni, they may be a sage. Tyaga koraye sansare, he's given up all different sansar, but still bandhu sneha anu bandhu nahi charibhare. He can't give up his love for his friends. Pita mata jahate koril anadare anya jana kebataha nabuji vichare. So just like he neglected his parents, koril anadare, in the same way anya jana keba, the same way other people, he's also going to neglect them. Taha nabuji vichare. Nabuji vichare, he's not going to be thinking about them at all. Krishna se duschyaja nahe sudhyacha sarvatam parangana sahite vichajata tata. He said that Krishna, he can do this, he can duschyaja, this duschyaja, he can, this very difficult thing to renounce his friends, his family, he can do this very easily because now he has all these other women in Mathura who are very, very attractive. And that's why he's able to give up the residence of Braj. Ekajana chajiya bihar anyasane Vairagiti brata Krishna Ascharya Katane. This is the renunciation of this Krishna. Eka Jana Chaji, he gives up one person, Bihar Anya Sani, but then he goes to associate with another and enjoys with them. Vairagi Tibrata Krishna. This is such nice chag that Krishna has. Ascharya Katane. We're speaking about this thing. Such nasty chag that he has. So, Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, in Caitanya-caritamrta, he speaks about this Bhramara Gita. And many acharyas, they describe this Bhramara Gita, in many ways, this is the most important chapter in the Srimad Bhagavatam. And why is it the most important chapter in Srimad Bhagavatam? Because it corresponds with the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Gambhira. Because as we are hearing from Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur, and also Nandakishore Goswami is describing, that Krishna, the only reason he sent Uddhava with this message is because he's afraid he's going to get criticized because he's giving up his parents. But really he doesn't care anything for us. He's not thinking anything about us at all. So Krishna says, Napariyeham niravadya samyujam. I have this debt I have to repay to the gopis. So how can he repay that debt? He has to show proper renunciation. Not what the gopis described as vairagi tibrita Krishna ascharya katane. What kind of renunciation is this? They're saying of Krishna. He's giving up the residence of Vrindavan, and he's just going to associate with these ladies in Mathura. So those ladies in Mathura, they correspond with Vishnu Priya and the devotees in Navadvip. And speaking about Krishna's mother and father, Sachimata is there in Navadvip, and to repay that debt to the gopis, to show that no, my love for you is real. My focus for you is genuine. He has to give them up. And so Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, in Caitanya-caritamrta, in Anchi Lila chapter 14, in the 12th verse, he describes this feelings of separation that Mahaprabhu was having here in Puri. Krishna Mathuraya Gelai Gopiraje Dasa Hoila Krishna Vicheri Prabhura Se Dasa Upajila. That his condition, Krishna Mathuraya Gela, it was exactly the feelings Gela Gopiraje Dasa Hoila, the gopis were feeling when Krishna Mathuraya Gele, when Krishna left for Mathura. They were feeling this very, very intense separation. This is exactly, he says, the feelings that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was experiencing in Jagannath Puri. Because he has to repay his debt to the gopis. He's come, he always satisfies the love of all of his devotees. Yeya tam mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajamyaham. And Mother Yashoda has come again as Sachi Devi. But Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he has to give up her love. And he has to leave Navadvip. Leave the devotees there who love him so much in a similar way that the devotees in Mathura love him. And he has to go to Jagannath Puri, where he can experience the feelings of separation, the one-pointed focus that Srimati Radharani had on Krishna. And Kaviraj Goswami goes on to speak in the next verse in the same chapter. Uddhava darshani jaiche radhara vilap krame krame hoile prabhu se unmada vilap. The Radhara vilap, or the lamentation of Srimati Radharani, krami krami hoile prabhu, this became gradually the focus of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Unmada Vilap, or his lamentation in madness, because he has to repay the gopis. The gopis gave up everything. So Krishna also had to give up everything. And so as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he had to give up all of his friends and relatives in Navadvip. And Kaviraj Goswami goes on. Radhikara bhave prabhu sada abhiman, sehi bhave apanake hoy radha gyan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's emotions exactly corresponded to those of Srimati Radharani when she met Uddhava. He said that Se bhave apanaki hoy radha gyan, that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was always conceiving of himself and her position, and sometimes he was thinking that I'm Srimati Radharani herself. Krishna has to think in this way to repay his debt to Srimati Radharani. He has to experience those same feelings of separation. Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami describes in the 15th chapter, the Amcha-lila, about the mood of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there in the Gambhira, and how was it that he was able to taste that mood. We may not think about this, but this is a very big thing. How is it that Krishna was able to taste the mood of Radharani? Because Krishna has this position as Priti Vishra, he's the supreme object of love. How can he understand the mood of being a devotee? Srimati Radharani is a Priti Ashray. She's the abode of love. So he has to, as we spoke in our last session, he requires to have a teacher. We often say this is the Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem. And that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu opened this university to teach us how to do bhajan to attain Vrindavan. So just as in a university, you have to have a teacher, you have to have a professor, and you have to have a textbook. So similarly, in this University of Braj Prem, known as Jagannath Puri Dham, where Sri Krishna came to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani, he came as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There's also a professor, two professors here that he's hearing from, and they have textbooks that they're reading from. That main textbook is Caitanya-bhagavata. But Kaviraj Goswami in Amcha-lila chapter 15 describes different textbooks that they were hearing from. Eta kahi gora hari dui jana kanta dhari kahi suna swarupa ramroy. Kahan karun kahan jana kahan gele Krishna pan dune more kaha se upan. This is the Vilap. This is the words of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He was speaking in this way. And dui jana kanta dhari. Kanta dhari means to catch. Dhari means to hold. Kanta, the neck. He was grabbing hold of the neck of Dui Jana, two persons. Who are those two persons? Swarup Ram Roy. And Mahaprabhu was saying, Kahe suna Swarup Ram Roy. Listen to me. Kahan karan, kahan jana, kahan gele Krishna pan, dune more kaha se upai. He's saying, where can I get Krishna? Where shall I go? What shall I do? Tell me, what are the means to find him? So from this we can understand that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who's Krishna Nomi Krishna Sarupam, is Krishna himself. But when he wants to taste Radha Bhava Duti, the love and the complexion, the mood and complexion of Srimati Radharani, he requires help. And he takes help from these two personalities, Swarup and Ram Roy. And he's asking them, what should I do? Where can I get Krishna? Please tell me. What should I do? How can I enter into this university of Braj Prem? E mata gora prabhu prati dini dini vilapa korena swarup Ramananda sane. In this way, e mata, in this way, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prati dini, day after day, vilap korina, he was lamenting Swarup Ramananda Sani in the association of Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda. Sehi dui jani prabhu re kore asvasana, Swarup Gaya Roy kore shloka patana. And as we spoke something in our last session, these two personalities, Sehi dui jan prabhu kore asvasana. Asvasana is an important word here. They were pacifying. They were consoling Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. That was their purpose. Our acharyas have described that whenever Bhagavan has a desire, then Balaram, his first expansion, manifests a particular dham to enhance that particular desire of the Lord. When the Lord wants to enjoy some opulent pastimes, Aishvarja Moya Lila, then Balaram manifests himself as Vaikunta. When the Lord wants to enjoy some Aishvarja Lila, which is mixed with Nara Lila, then the Lord manifests as Dwarka and Ayodhya. They perfectly bring out the feelings that the Lord wants to experience. So similarly, the Lord's associates, they manifest particular forms in particular times and places to perfectly enhance the particular mood the Lord has. And so Lalita and Vishaka have come as Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda. And what is their business? As we read and I spoke in our last session, Swarup Damodar Goswami came as the friend. This is in Manasiksha. Raghunath Das Goswami, he says that Lalita is a friend. And he says that Vishaka, she's the guru. So here Kaviraj Goswami is saying, Swarupa Gai, that Swarup Damodar Goswami, he's singing Gai. Because that singing means something which comes from our heart. That's why singing is such an important thing. That's why singing can affect us in such a deep way. So Swarup Damodar Goswami, being a dear friend of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, because he's Lalita, he understands the mood of Radharani, he's singing. And he's singing these different songs that we just mentioned, from Vidyapati and Chandidas and others there in the Gambhira. So Swarup Damodar Goswami, he's singing, and Roy Kare Shloka Patan. Roy Ramananda, he's reciting verses. So as we mentioned in our last session, this is our Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition. We don't have one without the other. Both are there. Swarup Gai, Roy Kore Shloka Patana. The kirtan of our sampradaya is culminated in the Gambhira Leela, with Krishna as Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu doing kirtan, trying to taste the mood of Srimati Radharani. But he can't do it alone. He needs help. And so Swarup Damodar is singing. He's chanting Hare Krishna sometimes he's singing different songs. And Roy Ramananda is reciting verses. So both things go together. And this is our Gaudiya tradition. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, Gorkishore Das Babaji Thakur, Bhakti Vinod, all of our acharyas did not only do kirtan, but they would do kirtan and they would speak Krishna Katha. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur explains that you can't separate one from the other. Just as you can't separate, he says, Krishna from Srimati Radharani. Krishna's come in the form of the name, and Srimati Radharani has come in the form of Krishna Katha. Just as Radharani enhances or enables, helps to assist the devotees to come to Krishna, that Krishna Katha enhances or brings us closer to Krishna Nam. Because by hearing Krishna Katha, it gives us some focus, it gives us some understanding, something to think about. And this is our process of smaran. It comes in a natural way by having these two things together. We have kirtan to begin with, because that beginning kirtan, it opens up the doorway of the heart. And then we need something to fill that empty space of the heart. So we have Krishna Katha. And then what do we do after we have that Krishna Katha? We have more kirtan. And that last kirtan is the expression of whatever we've put inside the heart of that Katha. And therefore we see that Srila Prabhupada, even in the very beginning in 26 Second Avenue, in Haight-Ashbury, when Prabhupada was doing programs there, Prabhupada would do kirtan, then he would speak, and then he would do kirtan. Very rarely did Prabhupada only do kirtan. One such example, there's two examples that I can think of. One was in Melbourne, Australia, because there were some hippies who were harassing him. And Prabhupada, he was getting ready to give a lecture, and then he just told the devotees, out of disgust, just do kirtan. They can't hear anything. Just do kirtan and give them prasadam. Another time was in France, and similarly some local young people, they were harassing Srila Prabhupada when he started to speak. And he told the devotees, they can't hear, so just do kirtan. So they missed out. They had a great opportunity. These two things go together. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, in this Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem, is teaching us how to do bhajan to attain Vrindavan. And he's not only doing Nam Kirtan, but he's also doing Krishna Katha. And that Krishna Katha enhances the Nam Kirtan. The Nam Kirtan enhances the Krishna Katha, which further enhances the Nam Kirtan, which further enhances the Krishna Katha. And these two are in a cyclic form. And Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, to teach us that this is our system and our sampradaya, he's coming with Lalita and Vishaka. And Lalita is coming as Sri Damodar, who's singing, doing kirtan. And Roy Ramananda is speaking Krishna Katha, to teach us that both things are required. Not just that we only like to have kirtan. Sometimes devotees do that. They have kirtan programs, but they don't have Krishna Katha. That's okay. Some definite benefit is there. The holy name is everything. But if we want the full benefit, we should learn from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's example in the Gambhira. And what were they hearing? Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami goes on to describe in the same 15th chapter of the Antya-lila. Subdamodar is singing, Roy Ramananda is reciting verses. From what? Caitanya-mrta Vidyapati Shri Gita Govinda Ihara Shloka Gite Prabhuda Korainanda. They were reading from the book by Bilvamangala Thakur, the Krishna Caitanya-mrta. They were reading the songs of the poet Vidyapati. They were reading Jayadev Goswami's Gita Govinda. And Kaviraj Goswami says that Ihar Shloka Gita Prabhu Kore Ananda. That by doing this, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is getting great pleasure in his heart. This is a very amazing thing. These books, the Caitanya-mrta, the Vidyapati, Chandidas, is described in other places in Caitanya-caritamrta. The Gita Govinda of Jayadev Goswami, which is composed according to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati here in Orissa. And his village, his Shripad, is still here today. And the Gita Govinda is very, very intimately connected with Jagannath Puri, with Lord Jagannath. These are the foundational literatures of the University of Braj Prem. And it's Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna, empowered these devotees to speak these things before he came. And what is the special quality about these literatures? You may say, well, we haven't read these literatures. Prabhupada never translated Vidyapati or Chandidas. He never translated Krishna Caitanya-mrta. He never translated Gita Govinda. Why didn't he translate these books? And someone may speak up and say, well, I've heard that because these are very, very high books. It's true, these are very high books, and in general, our acharyas don't encourage neophyte devotees to take part in these books. But why is it? What is it that makes them so very, very intimate? These literatures describe the feelings of Srimati Radharani. And so that's something which is very, very confidential. That's something very, very high. Something we empowered Bilva-Mangala Thakur. He empowered Jayadev Goswami, Vidyapati, and Chandidas to write these literatures and express the intimate feelings of Srimati Radharani. These are the textbooks in the Jagannath Puri University of Braj Prem, in the Gambhira, that were being related by the two professors, Srup Damodar and Roy Ramananda. And so in our next session, I want to go on with a very, very esoteric song from the poet Vidyapati, which explains something about the purpose of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's sannyas and perfectly expresses the feelings of Srimati Radharani when she met Uddhava at that place known as Uddhava Keri. So we're going to stop there. We have to go soon to the hospital. We have some problems going on. Here's a little bit of a drama. I want to thank Antoyami Das Prabhu for taking part in Shamrup. Nice to see you, Shamrup Prabhu, from nice sunny warm Boston. Natalia in Estonia, and Ananta Garanga Prabhu, I think you're still in Mayapur. And Ashwin, Hare Krishna, nice to see you. We missed your association. Huh? I hope that you're being nice to Neha. And Ujjvala Rasiga Mataji, Hare Krishna. Radhi Govinda Prabhu asks, he says, do you have a poetic rendition of Bhramara Gita done by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati in Bengali? No, I don't, and I would be very, very interested to get that. If Radhi Govinda Prabhu, if you have that, could please share that with me in Bengali script or translation or no translation. Nice to see Manju Krishna Prabhu, Hare Krishna. And Ujjvala Rasiga, she's asked some question. Would you please explain what you meant by Guru is not talking about psychology, etc.? Does Srila Bhaktivinoda have some writings explaining the mechanics of the mind and then directed to bhakti? Also, when the effect of bhakti is explained in terms of the psychodynamic, for those who like to hear it that way, isn't that okay? Yes, it is okay, and sometimes Vaishnavas do speak in that way. My point is that the message of Guru is not psychiatry. It's not mental health. It's not social messages. Those are secondary things. But bhakti is a primary thing. But to bring people into bhakti, Srila Prabhupada, in the beginning, he taught Sanskrit to the devotees who are interested. And sometimes Bhaktivinoda Thakur in Caitanya-caritamrta, he speaks some things about psychiatry and Varnashram Dharma to bring people into bhakti. So sometimes the Vaishnavas do that, and that's a good thing. Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, he compares it to, he calls that bridge preaching, right? But he says that what does a bridge preaching mean? It means you have a river that you don't want to fall into, and you have two embankments. And on one side you have the devotees, and on the other side you have the non-devotees. So the bridge is something which connects the two together. And sometimes the devotees, out of their kindness, they go across that bridge to give a message that maybe they don't normally relish. But Bhakti Vigyan Maharaj, he says that sometimes as a problem, they cross over the bridge and they don't come back. They stay there on the other side, and they speak to the non-devotees about psychiatry, or they speak to them about Ayurvedic medicine, or about Vastu, or they speak to them about astrology, or tarot cards, or whatever, so many things to attract people's attention. But if they don't show the bridge, if they don't bring people across that bridge, he says, then what's the value? And sometimes we actually lose devotees. They go across that bridge of bridge preaching, and they just stay on the other side. I like very much the example of the Bhakti Center in New York. And they have Ayurvedic cooking there. They take Vedic psychiatry. They teach Hatha Yoga and so many different classes and things. But from the very beginning, you know this is the Hare Krishnas. They see devotees wearing tilak. And the devotees, they don't preach to them about Krishna. They speak to them about Hatha Yoga and all these other things that people want to hear. But the people understand these are Hare Krishna people. And what the devotees do, they make friends with them. And then after they become a little close friends with them, and those new people, those outside people, develop some friendship with them. And the devotees say, hey, we have this program every Thursday night. It's called Kirtan. Why don't you come? And they go there, and they have some of the best Kirtaniyas. They have Genevieve Harrison there sometimes, and different Madhava Prabhu sometimes, and different amazing Kirtaniyas. And they go for that Kirtan, and that's an amazing program. And so they get a real dose of that. So that's, to me, the ideal example of bridge preaching. So Ashwin Prabhu is asking, what is the role of Rupa and Sanatan in the University of Braj Prem? So they're also professors in this University of Braj Prem. The university was opened up by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He's the first student. You have to have a student. And the first professors who established the university are Swarup Damodar and Roy Ramananda. And then they trained up Rupa Raghunath. And they're also teaching. And all of our acharyas are teaching in that University of Braj Prem. And they're engaging all of their students, all of their followers, in that kirtan of our sampradaya. Hare Krishna, nice to see Pradyumna here. And Brinda Sundari from the distant place of Denver, Colorado. Nice to see you. And Onkar has a question. He says, what is the point or the indicating factor when a person enters bhakti? Because many people continue such secondary things even after coming to bhakti. My Guru Maharaj spoke about this. He says that the real beginning of bhakti is what he called Atma Krandana, or the crying of the heart. It's not just even the chanting of the holy names. And Jiva Goswami, in his Kama Sandarbha commentary in the 6th canto, he says there's such a thing as Kevala Nam Kirtan, or common chanting. You have some people, here in Jagannath Puri, you have some smartas who chant Hare Krishna. You have some smartas who they chant Hare Krishna at the time of the weddings. They have a system, it's a tradition here in Orissa, that when the bride gets married, she gets initiated in the Hare Krishna mantra. But that conception they're giving is not so much a bhakti conception, it's just a ritualistic religious conception. And it's certainly a wonderful thing because it's a holy name, but it's not the Namashrestha Manamapi Sachiputram, that pure name that Raghunath Das Goswami speaks about, that Jiva Goswami in the Sandarbha speaks about as Sneha Samyukta Nam, or the holy name accompanied with affection. So some people, they begin doing some bhakti, but Jiva Goswami in Bhakti Sandarbha, he speaks about this. In the beginning, he says there's some sukriti, and he calls that agyata sukriti. It's unknowing benefit. And someone doesn't really understand. We see sometimes people, they make fun of the kirtan party, and they come and they start chanting, and maybe they even dance at the kirtan party. They're getting some benefit. It's agyata sukriti. It's agyata, unknowing, because they're not aware of the benefit of it. But then when they come to the point of gyata sukriti, understanding, oh, this is a very important thing to do. If I do this, it's going to be very, very good for me. I'll make so much advancement. I'll purify my consciousness. I'll become religious. And they're thinking like that. That's gyata sukriti. It's still not yet bhakti, but that gyata sukriti, after it comes bhakti. I hope that's some help for you, Onkar. And Ujjwala Rasiga goes on, bridge preaching is certainly a risky thing. I wonder if they have enough time and mind for pure Krishna Kirtan Bhajan if they're so occupied with bridge preaching. Well, it depends. The bridge preaching should be a natural manifestation of our kirtan. If our kirtan in Krishna Katha is there, as Vaisheshika Prabhu likes to say, our preaching is just like filling a glass with milk. And when you fill the glass up with milk and the milk starts overflowing, that's our preaching. So we do our kirtan, we have our Krishna Katha, and when that starts overflowing, that's our preaching. And that preaching for the advanced devotees is not a mental adjustment. It's not that, oh, I think I'll speak like this because I'll speak about Ayurvedic cooking because that'll attract some people. That's okay on a mental platform, and it may be accepted as some service, but in a higher realm, when we go very deep in our Krishna Katha and very deep in our bhajan, then Krishna speaks to the devotee. And he inspires them in the heart that this is how you can connect with these people. Maybe they're interested in Hatha Yoga. That's okay. Then talk to them about Hatha Yoga. But be a devotee. Wear your tilak. Wear your kunti mala so that they ask you, what is that those beads around your neck? What is that paint on your face? What are you doing? And you can do that when you make friends with them. We make friends with people when we, in this bridge preaching, when we have compassion and affection for them. If we just go out like fanatics and just try to insist that everybody become a pure devotee right now, and you should chant like this, then how many people are going to become devotees? And is that really an expression of love? I don't think so. But love means that we're tolerant, that we'll go and we will try to help them. Just like once I remember reading about a man, interesting man in Los Angeles. Sometimes I speak about him. I saw in the news somewhere that he had taken dogs who nobody wanted. And these were dogs, like especially pit bull dogs and very violent dogs, who were attacking people. And he took those dogs, and he had a remarkable ability to reform those dogs and make them into gentle, loving creatures. These were dogs, some of whom had been trained their whole life just to fight in a pen with other dogs, to kill other dogs. And he showed them love and compassion. And as part of that love and compassion, he said that every one of those dogs, mostly, at one point or another, would end up biting him. But he would tolerate those bites. And when I read that, I thought, this is the work of a preacher. This is Srila Prabhupada. They come to the West and they tolerate the biting of the new people, the new devotees. The biting in the form of politics, the biting in the form of people coming to sadhu and saying, Maharaj, I just want to get married, or Maharaj, and my wife, she won't be intimate with me. It's not nice. You should tell her to do that. Maharaj, what should I do? I need to make money. This is a kind of biting, in a sense, for the devotees. But they tolerate that, just as this man tolerated the biting of the dogs. And when you tolerate that biting, then those dogs, after some time, they learn, oh, he actually cares about me, even though I've been biting him. And so Sadhu Guru is also like that. Okay, so anybody else with any reflections? Anybody here in the room with any reflections they want to share? Anybody? They just came in very suddenly. Okay, so I want to thank everybody very much, and we'll be back next week with this very amazing, very esoteric, and very deep song from Vidyapati, from his Bhangya Padabali, his Bengali kirtan. So thank you all very much for taking part. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Samaveda Bhakta Binda ki jai, Vancha Kalpatarubhishcha, Kripa Sindhu Bhyevacha, Patitanam, Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namo, Ananda Koti.